Hello and welcome back. You'll notice there's no Marie today. That's because she's not feeling very well. So all our lovely thoughts go to her, and I hope she gets better soon and comes back to keep me company. But fear not, you're not going to have to just listen to my voice the whole time, because my lovely producer Penny is joining us. Introduce yourself, Penny, and tell us a bit about yourself.
Thank you, Jodi. Well, I'm Penny, and I'm normally the silent partner in these podcasts, because normally I sit and just listen and wave my hands around at people. But today I am standing in for Marie, which is very exciting. I hope I can do her justice.
It's your own time you're wasting. Ramblings from Beyond the Classroom with Marie and Jodi.
We spent a bit of time thinking about what to talk about today, and something close to kind of both our hearts is theatre and drama. So as our regular listeners will probably know, I used to work in professional theatre before I was a teacher in the kind of backstage world. Penny, your connection is?
Well, so I'm an English teacher, secondary English teacher, but before I was an English teacher, I was a professional actress. So I did the whole go to drama school, trawl around looking for work, that kind of thing. So I acted for a while, and I think that is the reason that we decided to talk about drama today, is because I think drama is an incredibly powerful tool in the classroom, and I'm really pleased that I had that theatre experience that I could bring to teaching, because I think it can genuinely be transformative in a classroom.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I remember seeing a performance, I think I was probably year 7 or 8, called Kindertransport, about the transportation of Jews from Germany to be evacuated into the UK just before World War II. And ever since then I've become obsessed with it, and there's loads of documentaries around it and what happened to those people once they got here. And you know, that's been 20 years now of me just being interested in that topic because of this one drama piece that, you know, really stuck in my mind and had a massive impact.
Absolutely. I mean, I have similar. I remember theatre and education companies coming to my school when I was at secondary and at primary, actually, and it just being amazing experiences. And now it's, you know, I remember one in particular, a theatre and education company who came to my primary school and did a Victorians experience for us, and we all became chimney sweeps, and we had to sort of climb up like chimneys and things, and it was just absolutely brilliant. And I think nothing could have taught me better about in that case about history and the history of the Victorians than that actual kind of physical drama experience. So I think it's such a valuable tool. But of course it's not just companies coming in and you know, and performing for you. There's also things that teachers can do every day to bring drama into the classroom.
And I once did, so there's a topic in maths that is called bearings, which is similar to degrees, but it's kind of more specific. It's more to do with your navigation and stuff. And obviously, having had a background from boats, I always was quite keen to teach it in context, because it's a really bizarre topic. It's got all these rules, which if you teach them in isolation, like you have to measure from north, you have to measure clockwise, you have to give it in 3. If you just tell them that, makes no sense, but it does in context.
So by bearings, you do mean sort of directional bearings rather
Directional
than
bearings. Yeah, directional bearings. So I did this whole role play thing with the kids where we had charts and we did like this whole thing. Bottom set year 8, really struggled with maths. And together we had this like role play of trying to navigate from one place to another and how we do that with different bearings and stuff. And we kind of joked up and we were all like pirates and stuff, and we're sort of making fun of ourselves, kind of doing it a bit tongue-in-cheek. And every time someone got something right, I go, oh, and if they got it wrong, I go, oh, and stuff like that. But like, it gave a bit of context to these kids, and hopefully some of them still remember that. And it made a really dull topic slightly more interesting. So it doesn't have to be some big drama thing. It can just be a little role play or a little vibe.
Absolutely, and I think that's actually where some students and some teachers get a bit stuck actually. They think that by drama it means that you have to have some kind of end result, and you have to put on a performance, or you have to get people to read from a script, or whatever, and it can be actually much more sort of informal than that, and much less scary, because I think I know that a lot of students, you say the word drama to them and they will freeze and they will be really nervous about that, because to them it means perhaps reading out in front of other students or speaking up in front of other students, and it really doesn't have to mean that. There's no reason why you can't do a drama activity in smaller groups, for example, and there's no performing to the class at all. And obviously I come from a subject, English, which is naturally given to using drama, so not least because we have plays and we study plays, but I would use it for all sorts of things. I mean, there's the obvious things like hot seating, and sort of studying plays and reciting poetry and things like that, but then there's also really interesting ways that you can sort of explore characters, by doing drama exercises and by doing some improvisation. You can explore poetry by asking students to act out particular words within a poem. I think poetry in particular within English can feel really inaccessible sometimes, and I think sometimes students really panic when they see a poem on the page, but if you take some of the words out of that poem and you ask them to act those words, then you can end up with sort of an acting word cloud of exactly what that poem is about, and that's a really fun activity to do.
And I do, of course there's subjects that lend towards drama and kind of that performance aspect. Obviously drama and performing arts, but also, your English, your history, that stuff does just lend towards it. But there are ways you can include it. Kind of one of the things, unfortunately I've never actually managed to do this, but I wanted to look at the history of maths and kind of have different characters from that, and look at kind of some of Plato's conversations and stuff like that, and have people having a discussion about maths that you would, people presenting as if this thing is brand new, like Fibonacci did, or like so-and-so did,
I think that, I've done that in English, where I've actually got colleagues to come in as particular characters from history to talk to students. So, we would have a Henry VIII, or we would have a Shakespeare or whatever. And it doesn't always work with your older classes, but certainly with your Key Stage 3 classes, it's really good fun, simply because there's something, it being interactive is so much more fun for them. And colleagues really enjoy it as well. And I think that's the other thing about drama, actually, that is worth mentioning, is that I feel that my background as an actor really informed my teaching. I think actually drama is a really effective tool, not just for kind of engaging students and unlocking topics for students, but also for unlocking teaching ability in teachers. So I think that because when I came to teaching, I actually came to teaching, and this is a bit of a confession, I came to teaching as an unqualified teacher. So I was employed, I was employed unqualified, and I was just very lucky that I found a head who was willing to take a chance on me and went, actually, I think you can do it. Which is, I don't think you could do that now, could you? It would be terrifying. Parents would be probably quite rightly up in arms, but and I hasten to add that I did become qualified. I did an assessment-based option and I became qualified on the job. But actually, that experience of having that acting experience and being able to walk into a classroom and actually not knowing the rules, not knowing the conventions of, well, you've got to have a starter and a plenary and all that kind of stuff, and just going, oh, this is, if I were teaching this using my theatre experience, this is how I'd do it. And my classes were mad, but mad in a really good way, I think, in those first few years, because we would do, we would all be standing on tables. We would be sort of, doing what's more onto the breach, dear friends, on chairs, and we would go out to the field and do lots of sort of exploratory activities with poetry. And so I think actually, as a teacher, you can unlock lots of stuff within yourself with drama. And the other really important thing about that is, of course, that you can create a personality for yourself. So if you're one of those teachers who actually doesn't like to be themselves in front of a class, you can create a persona, and you can, use that persona in order to engage with students. So I was very much, I had a very much a character. I even had a costume that obviously the students didn't see it as a costume, but I always wore waistcoats, I always wore a pocket watch, I always wore cons. I was that teacher. And actually that was really useful for me because it helped me to find a way into teaching, to kind of create that personality. Did you do that?
Yeah, I did. It was a dress for me. I'm not like, I wear dresses to weddings and stuff like that. But I almost always wore a dress as a teacher. Kind of think Clara in Doctor Who. That was my vibe, dress in a blazer. Yeah. And I very much consciously modelled myself on that. I modelled myself on that vibe of kind of. And a bit later on, I did start to wear trousers and stuff. But no, I was almost always in a skater dress. And like, yeah, it's that. And I remember kind of sitting down, and it was when I was at university, we did an outreach program into secondary schools in East London, and we kind of sat down for our briefing, and two things came out of this. First of all, the like 90-year-old man told me that I should have respect for myself and call myself Muzz, so I was always Miss Garth, just to spite him. And he told us that we'd have to put on this performance, we'd have to put on this mask, and as you walk into the classroom, you leave some of your genuine self behind. And I hated the idea of that. I hated the idea of me standing in front of people and not being my genuine self. And so I really thought, I had an outfit that made me feel like a teacher, but I really fought against that, leaving myself at the door. And more and more that happened. And more with, you know, the difficult classes, particularly, that happened. But it made me feel less and less genuine and less in touch with the kids, because they thought they were seeing the genuine me, but actually they were seeing a version of me. And that was quite weird to me, that there was this lie.
Yeah, I think to a certain extent we do that in every walk of life, don't we? I think we all present a version of ourselves in different circumstances. So, yeah, and I can see what you mean. I think it is important to be genuine with students, no matter what. But sometimes I think having that extra layer of something you can sort of construct and hide behind can be helpful. I think particularly in this day and age where, you know, as teachers, we are held up to really nigh on impossible standards about our presence on social media, our presence in the local community. You know, we're expected to be whiter than white constantly, you know, and perhaps rightly so, but actually one way to kind of help with that is perhaps to create some kind of persona for yourself within the classroom.
It's your own time you're wasting. So why not stick the kettle on, put your feet up and have a cuppa? Ah, bliss.
So your experience in the theatre, Jodi, what was your what was your experience? You were crew, weren't you?
Yeah, so I started off just doing follow spot, which is basically a big light that you point at people, and it's done manually because it follows the actor around or the dancer or performer on stage. So it's normally, if you go to the theatre quite often, you normally see them right at the back in the gods, two or three
really
of them.
high up.
Really high up. At my local theatre, it's not too bad in one of them, but the other one is terrifying. So it was for Oliver, in fact, and was sat on this kind of walkway, 30 foot in the air, sat cross-legged, it was intense. And then I kind of got into doing the more backstage stuff. I've worked as stage crew, I've worked as a dresser, so doing like quick changes on West Side Story, that was. Most recently I worked in flies, which is when you see the kind of set flying in and out, literally going up into the sky. That's someone literally pulling on a rope. So I got to do that over Christmas last year, which was brilliant. So I still do bits and bobs of professional theatre and have done throughout my teaching career. Obviously it's harder now, I'm not doing it full time, but I'm always quite open about it because, well, it's cool and I'm proud of it, but also it's nice for the kids to see. I mean, I think this is the thing, is I like being open with the kids. I like them knowing that I have that other side to me, and I like them knowing that I'm dyslexic, and I like them knowing, you know, I think it adds a certain something if you've got that personal
absolutely. And
vibe.
I think particularly that kind of experience. I mean, definitely, I shared loads of acting stories with my students, and they loved that kind of insight, sort of a peek behind the curtain kind of thing. And yeah, the other thing about theatre work, though, that I think really is really useful for teaching is, I mean, life in theatre can be really relentlessly hard.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
it's really, really hard work. This sounds like a bit of a sob story, doesn't it? But it genuinely is. If you're doing sort of, and I've done family shows where I was doing 3 shows a day, and that is grueling stuff.
Absolutely.
It's really hard work. But also it's a profession where you have to get used to dealing with rejection a lot, particularly if you're an actor. You can go to auditions and you can literally walk into a room and they take one look at you and they go, no, you don't look right, out you go, before you even open your mouth. And that is hard, but actually it teaches you resilience as a person. And I think that is another really useful quality to have when you come to teaching, because as we all know, it's a profession that's getting harder and harder. And I think, so being able to kind of steel yourself is important.
For me, the time management and the ability to go without sleep was 2 of the main things. So I remember doing, this is before I was a teacher, but not long before I was a teacher, I did a week of The Sound of Music, 2 shows a day, every day, except for Saturday when we did 3 shows a day. And I'd done that for 2 weeks. And on the Saturday, did 3 shows, the final Saturday. So I think it was an 11 a.m, or a 1 p.m, and a 7 p.m, or whatever. Then went straight into the get out to get all of the set out, which took us to 6 a.m. I then got in a car, that was in Durham, drove back down from Durham to Sheffield, and did a get in for a different show starting at 10 a.m. There was 1 hour. I slept in the car, got to Sheffield and went straight onto and then did another 3 weeks on that show. So for 5 weeks.
You weren't driving.
I wasn't driving. Someone else drove me.
So it was fine for you to sleep in the car.
Yeah. Someone else drove me. I slept. That was the only sleep I got. Went straight in for the inn. Was there till midnight on 3 hours sleep. So I basically worked I think I worked out as about 40, just short of 40 hours straight.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean there's a lot of hard work. I would like to say though that I think that despite there being huge amounts of work and there's 3 show days and all of just those kind of situations that you've just described, I still think that teaching is the hardest job I have ever done in terms of exhaustion and just never switching off.
The difference with the theatre is you're on this constant high, and particularly for me, I didn't kind of do it long enough for it to stop being a bit of a novelty, and for me to oh my god, I'm actually doing this. So kind of like that 5 weeks of non-stopness, that was probably 30, 40, 50 performances in front of each one, in front of 5 to 1,000 people. So you're thinking about 500 to 1,000 people. So you're thinking about like how many people you're giving joy to, and how many kids have come to see Sound of Music and loved it, and how many people have come to see the next show, which is Happy Days, and loved it, and then the show after that. Kind of all this. That every single show, something is amazing, but you can bring something that'll stick with people ever, because drama just has that power, and theatre just has that power.
Yeah, it really does enchant, doesn't it? It casts a spell, I think. But then, like we were saying, that kind of, when you're an actor, say you are doing 3 shows a day, and each show is a 2 hour. If it's 3 shows a day, it's going to be a family show. That's going to be a 2 hour show. So you're talking about 6 hours a day. That's maximum of 6 hours a day that you are performing. As a teacher, that's every day. Yeah. Every day, because teaching is a performance. I really do believe that. You're not the starring role, because the kids are. Of course they are, but actually, you are switched on, and you have to be bright and breezy and engaging and.
And in a show,
it's hard work.
You'll get downtime, you'll get your interval where literally people can't see you, and you'll get time between shows, and you'll get stuff like that. Whereas as a teacher, you get there until you leave, you're like, there's no break. Your lunch break is not a break.
Oh yeah. I mean, you barely get time to wee.
What's on your mind? Let us know your thoughts, ideas and anecdotes. drop us a line at beyondmailbag@twinkle.co.uk.
Do you know, I once did a Christmas show on a 3-show day, and I fell victim to norovirus. Oh God, it was absolutely.
God.
But Doctor Theatre kicked in. You know, the show must go on. So I ended up going on stage, but we were radio mic'd. And there was one occasion where I ran off stage. I kind of finished a song, ran off stage, ran the loo, and forgot to turn off my radio mic. So everybody heard me being quite drastically sick. And that's the kind of thing that actually stood me in really good stead as a teacher, because if you can, you know, if you can do that and like front it out with everybody afterwards, then you can.
And actually, the more we talk about this, the more I'm kind of bringing parallels, because so Dr. Theatre or Dr. Greasepaint, I've heard it called as well, is you're in the theatre and the show must go on. You just find something from somewhere to pull through.
Which is what you do as a teacher.
And you do that as a teacher, don't you? Like the amount of times where, you'll take your Lemsip and you'll take your Strepsils and all your other medication that you can, but you'll still feel like death. And then the class starts, and I even find it now tutoring, and you're like, I can do this. Yeah. And then it finishes and you're literally like, ugh, kill me now. Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah.
I do think there are lots of parallels, actually. But, so, if we were, so here, me putting on my producer hat again, we were going to say, if we had to come up with sort of 5 tips for drama or theatre in the classroom, or 5 kind of take-homes, what would you say? My
number 1 would be, don't automatically rule out your subject, because we can all see how it can work in English or in history, but in your maths and your science and your geography and all that, think about, could you bring in some kind of historical figure? That would be my main thing.
Brilliant.
Or give them 2 answers and get them to role play, one as the examiner and one as, as the student, and do it like that.
Lovely, yeah.
There's lots of ways to bring it in that isn't standing up and performing a show. So that'd be my number 1.
So I'm gonna come up with one now. So mine would be that don't think that drama has to be words. Getting physical can be in kind of like in letting kind of kids kind of explore text or whatever physically can be really, really beneficial. So, take some words out of a text and ask them to create that physically within the classroom space. And you can do it within the class. You don't have to hire out the hall or, book out the hall or the drama studio or whatever. You can literally put your tables to one side and let students kind of feel the words a bit sort of through physicality, I think is really, really important.
Yeah. And I think drama, my number 3, would be drama doesn't have to be kind of with a capital D. I've seen a lot of people do things where you get students to play the teacher. So they go away, they research something, they learn about it, and they teach a 10-minute lesson on it. That counts as drama, because they're playing a role.
Yeah. And that kind of really informs metacognition, because there they are, they're learning about how they learn, and they're thinking about how they learn. So you've got kind of, you're including metacognition within that kind of exercise. So I'd say 4 is, I think drama can be a really good means of behaviour management. You will have classes where you have the more yampy students, and they are never going to want to they are never going to be the perfect class that's sitting down and being quiet and reading things quietly and sort of getting on with work in a really sort of disciplined way, and actually embrace that as much as you can, and use drama as a tool to help them explore texts and ideas that ordinarily you might be able to do with other class sitting down. It's okay to use drama and use different methods to help different classes access things in different ways. You don't have to be rigid and stick to your PowerPoint or whatever it is for each class.
My last one is to remember that you are playing a part as a teacher, and to take stock of what impact that's putting on you, and make sure you get a break from that, whether it's at home at the weekend or on your holidays. Obviously most people have just come back from their half-term holidays, but playing a part and putting on this persona is it does take your toll. So kind of think about how that sits with you and try and make sure that you are putting that persona to one side.
Yeah, I think that's a lovely mental health tip to end with, I think. Yeah. I think we've done it. We've done it. A you and me podcast rather than
bit
Marie.
bizarre.
I sincerely hope that Maria's back next week. I'm sure she will be.
Yeah, all our love to Maria. Hope she comes back soon and feels better soon, because we miss her. But in the meantime, if you miss us too, don't forget to like and subscribe and follow us on all social media platforms.
And email beyondmailbag@twinkle without an e.co.uk.
Oh, I thought I was going to say it since Marie wasn't here. Oh, thank you so much for joining us, and look after yourself. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.
This podcast is proudly produced by Beyond. Please bear in mind the views and opinions expressed are those of individuals and may not represent those of Beyond or Twinkle.